hammock camping? In the winter? Is that even possible? Turns out, yeah, it is. We've done it. So have plenty of other intrepid outdoorists who don't let a little cold stop them from sleeping outside. But here's the thing. Sleeping in a hammock when it's cold is a lot different than sleeping in a hammock when it's warm. Also, when sleeping in a tent when it's cold. We're going to break down why and how, plus share a few tips for comfortable winter hammock camping, so stick around till the end. Hey, I'm Alicia, by the way. So why does sleeping in a hammock result in such a different experience when it's cold outside? Well, science, that's why. So we're going to break down not just how tent versus hammock camping in the cold is different, but why it's different, scientifically speaking, and why it matters, plus how to effectively combat the cold with the right gear so you can sleep happy year-round. So stick around till the end, because frankly, hammock camping is super comfy, and if you prefer sleeping in a hammock to sleeping on the ground in the summer, then you should definitely know that you can indeed sleep suspended in the air when the mercury plummets too. You just have to know what the unique challenges are, why extra precautions and gear are necessary, and what gear you need so you go out there prepared. Frankly, I need a reason why to do anything. Prepared not to freeze to death. So let's first talk about all the different ways your body can and will lose heat and make you feel cold, whether or not you're sleeping outside. But first, did you know we have another YouTube channel? Yeah, it's adventure travel meets science meets sustainability. So if you're looking for really cool places to hammock camp, you're gonna want to check it out. We'll share a link in the description, also probably up in one of these corners somewhere. So go check it out, subscribe. It would actually really mean a whole lot, like for real. But back to types of heat loss. There are 4 main ways your body loses heat: evaporation, radiation, conduction, and convection. Plus respiration, but that's a comparatively minor one. Evaporation is when you are damp, say from sweat, a spilled water bottle, or a slip in a creek. As that moisture evaporates, it takes some of your body heat with it. That's one reason it's so important to dress in layers and avoid soaking clothing with sweat when you're exercising in the winter. Damp clothing just makes you colder. Radiation is when heat leaves the body just, normally. The majority, like 65% of your body heat is lost to radiation. That's why your mother is always yelling at you to wear a hat and zip up your coat. The best defense against this type of heat loss is to bundle up and trap body heat in insulating layers. Conductive heat loss is when your body comes in contact with something cold, like frozen ground, snow, or a cold metal bench. It effectively just sucks away your body heat in some sick natural obsession physics has with reaching temperature equilibrium. Conductive heat loss is similar but involves air, not a solid surface. It's the second largest way your body loses heat. It happens when a cold breeze blows and lowers the temperature of whatever body part it contacts. This type is why you might see an actual temperature of, say, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, but with a wind chill that makes it feel like 20. The movement of air can make you feel significantly colder. And like I said, there's also respiration heat loss, essentially what you lose to breathing, but that's usually pretty minimal. So what does all of this have to do with hammock camping, and how do you use this info to stay warm outside? Well, let's start with evaporation, because it's an easy one. Want to stay warm? Don't be wet. Don't go to bed wet. Put on warm, dry layers right before you get into your bag, including, especially, socks, so there's no chance anything is even damp from sweat. Then keep your gear dry. Don't spill your hot water bottle inside your sleeping bag, and don't go to bed in so many layers you're likely to wake up sweating, because then you'll be wet. See? Easy. Next up, radiation heat loss. Now, to prevent this and stay warmer, just cover your dang body via insulating layers. Sure, as in a warm base layer, maybe a puffy layer like some Big Agnes Camp Boss pants and a cozy coat epoxy Tekka fleece, but don't go crazy with more layers than that, because your final layer should be a warm sleeping bag. And in order to make that sleeping bag nice and cozy, you'll need to fill the space with your body heat, which won't happen if you're wearing 7 layers inside your bag. Just let the bag do its thing, okay? But that does mean you'll probably need a bag with a temperature rating at least 10 degrees below the lows you're expecting. That's because sleeping bag temperature ratings are weird and usually misleading. We'll link to a video explaining them below that explains how ratings work in more detail, but they're wild. You can use a quilt instead, but since hammocks are draftier than tents, a full mummy bag with a hood will keep you warmer, especially if you tend to sleep cold like I do. Next up, conductive heat loss, which, since you're suspended above the cold ground and not touching it like you would be in a tent, it's not really an issue. But conductive heat loss is, sort of related to convective heat loss, which can be a huge problem in a hammock, and maybe the most important to combat with the right gear. That's because air can swirl all around you, top, bottom, sides, including right under your butt, which will make you feel way colder. There's no escaping the wind chill, basically. Fortunately, there are several ways to combat convective heat loss, starting with an underquilt. No, seriously, get an underquilt, because without one, body heat will be sucked right out of you from beneath. Just why? Wouldn't a sleeping bag prevent that? Well, no, because any bag insulation you're laying on top of gets compressed, so it doesn't actually offer any insulating properties anymore. An underquilt, on the other hand, hangs below your hammock, so it's not crushed by your body weight and can more effectively block cold air from hitting your butt and causing CBS. That's cold butt syndrome. It effectively keeps out the wind, plus traps a little bit of body heat. And it is best to use a dedicated underquilt because they tend to be longer and stretch all the way from one end of your hammock to the other, better than, say, a top quilt or a rumple blanket or something like that. In addition to an underquilt, you probably also want to pack an insulated sleeping pad, which does wonders for further protecting you from that convective heat loss. In not so cold temps, a closed cell foam pad may be sufficient, but frankly, they're always rectangular, so don't fit in a hammock very well. I honestly prefer an insulated, inflatable, mummy-shaped pad with an R value of at least 5. The higher the number, the warmer it is, by the way. So honestly, I prefer my Nemo Tensor Extreme pad with an R value of 8.5 on winter camping trips. We'll drop links to all the gear we mentioned in the description, by the way. Also, while you may be tempted to pack a one-person hammock because it's smaller and lighter, I actually recommend a two-person hammock, especially if you're tall or have a larger frame. A two-person will make it way easier to stretch out diagonally, which is important if you want to lay flat, which you do. We did a whole video about how to comfortably sleep in a hammock, by the way, which you should totally watch. We'll link it below, obviously. But back to warmth. To further protect yourself from conductive heat loss, you'll want to protect yourself from wind from above too, which means hanging a tarp or fly close and tight against your hammock. I like to have mine close to or just touching the hammock straps that are wrapped around the tree. This helps in a couple of ways. One, it traps a little bit of body heat that might escape your bag, which it will do better the less space there is between it and your body, because it means there's less space to fill. But that's minor. Mostly it helps protect you from wind from the top and sides, especially when the edges of the fly descend lower to the ground. If your hammock didn't come with a ridgeline for hanging a tarp, one of my faves, the Hammock Mantis, has one built in, then some extra guy line or paracord attached to the same trees as your hammock will do just fine. But that's optional. A lot of setups like the Eno Sublink don't even require a guy line. Now, if it's really cold and you're also worried about respiration heat loss, bring a lightweight neck gaiter like a buff that you can pull over your nose and mouth while you sleep. I like a balaclava style deal with small slits over that area to make breathing easier but still offer some insulation. As for other tips for staying warm when hammock camping in the winter, I love to fill a Nalgene with hot water and just toss it in my bag at bedtime. Dang, that helps you get cozy when you first crawl in. Just, make sure the lid is on super duper tight so it doesn't leak, because, wet again. Hand and foot warmers work too, especially when tucked into chest pockets or between your thighs. Just so warm. I like the ones from Ignik personally. Also, stuff any extra clothes in your bag with you. That will help fill up any empty space and insulate you even more. Plus, your clothes won't be freezing cold when you put them on in the morning. I'm a huge fan of ultralight camp slippers too. My favorites are the Big Agnes full moon booties. They're compressible, much warmer than thick socks, and are oh so comfy. My feet love them. Yeah, they told me. See? Look how easy that is. Once you understand what type of heat loss you're battling in a hammock in cold weather, it makes a heck of a lot more sense how to prepare and protect yourself against the cold. Now, if you're looking for even more cold weather content, check out our video on the importance of layering and what our values have to do with sleeping pads. Then don't be afraid to wander on outdoors this winter. And like sleep happy. In a hammock, ideally.